Somewhere in a managed forest, a squirrel buries a seed in exactly the right spot, in exactly the right soil, for exactly the right tree species, and it was trained to do that. Not by accident, not by instinct alone, but by a system of selection, reward, environment, and repetition stacked so carefully that the behavior now passes between generations. That squirrel is doing more measurable ecological repair than most human restoration projects launched with 10 times the budget and 100 times the ambition. Most people hear that and assume the squirrel story is a charming footnote, a novelty tucked beside the real work. The real work, in their minds, involves satellite imaging, government partnerships, and keynote speeches at climate summits. But the forest doesn't care about the keynote. It cares about where the seed lands and whether the soil conditions match the root system's needs. The squirrel gets that right, repeatedly, across seasons, without a single grant renewal. What's actually happening here isn't a cute animal trick. It's a lesson in how systems outperform intentions every single time. The gap between a funded vision and a working outcome isn't filled with more ambition. It's filled with small, stacked, repeatable loops that compound quietly over time. Most large restoration projects fail at the same invisible seam, and it's almost never the vision that breaks first. The funding arrives, the mission statement gets framed, and the press release goes out before anything is planted. What collapses is always the middle layer, the small, repeated interactions that turn intention into durable behavior over time. A reforestation campaign can plant 1 million trees and still lose the ecosystem, because planting is a gesture, not a loop. Behavior only becomes reliable when it's shaped by consistent feedback, reward, and an environment that keeps reinforcing the right response. Grand plans skip that architecture entirely, betting on momentum where they should be building structure. The squirrel doesn't care about your mission statement. It responds to what actually happens after it acts. And that gap, between declaring a goal and designing the conditions that sustain it, is where every ambitious plan quietly falls. It starts before any training happens, with the question of which squirrels to work with at all. Not every animal in the population carries the same behavioral flexibility, and that gap matters more than almost anything else in the system. Researchers look for individuals that explore novel objects rather than freeze or flee from them. Those animals become the seed stock, the ones whose habits over generations can drift toward something useful. Once selected, the shaping begins in small, almost invisible increments of reward and repetition. A squirrel buries a seed in a marked zone, and something good follows, reliably, consistently, without exception. The brain doesn't need a lecture on ecology, it just needs the loop to close the same way every time. Stack enough closed loops and the behavior stops being trained. It becomes the default. Then something stranger happens. Offspring raised near these animals begin to mirror the pattern without direct instruction. The environment itself has been redesigned to make one behavior easier than all the others, and that redesign outlasts every individual animal inside. The squirrel doesn't know it's restoring a forest, and that's exactly the point. Every buried seed, every returned reward, every generation that learns from the last one, that's a loop doing its work. The system doesn't need the squirrel to understand the mission. It needs the squirrel to repeat the behavior. Grand visions fail because they demand understanding before repetition, intention before structure, belief before the loop is even built. What the squirrel teaches us is that scale is a byproduct of repetition, not a reward for ambition. You don't fix a forest by deciding to fix a forest. You fix it by designing conditions that make the right behavior easy, reliable, and worth repeating. Patience isn't waiting for results while doing nothing. It's building the architecture that makes results structurally inevitable. The people who change things aren't the loudest dreamers in the room. They're the ones quietly stacking loops.